At my girlfriend's birthday party, her ex peeled a shrimp for her. The whole room's attention shifted to me. Everyone expected a reaction, but instead, I started clapping and wished them a long-lasting relationship. The mood was there, so why don't you guys kiss already? Last month, on Evan's birthday, Ruby went with him to watch the sunrise at the beach. I angrily confronted Ruby, but she accused me of being suspicious, saying it was a group of friends, not just them. This led to a 2-week Cold War between us. Yesterday, Ruby sent me a screenshot of a restaurant reservation. I knew she was giving me an out. Every time we argue or have a Cold War, I'm the one to break the silence and speak first. After we make up, she usually gives me a small gift or some affection, which makes me happy and forget the unpleasantness, and I am back to adoring her. This has been our pattern these past few years. It's like she hits me with a stick and then hands me a piece of candy, and I let everything go. Our relationship's ups and downs were controlled by her. I'm like a kite in her hands, with her tightly holding the string, manipulating my emotions based on her mood. Blame my lack of resolve, always forgetting the hits after the candy. It's me who loves too humbly. But yesterday, when she sent the reservation screenshot, I didn't feel the usual joy. Before, just her remembering my birthday would make me ecstatic. After all, every year I had to remind her days in advance to get her to buy a gift. This year, I even forgot my own birthday, yet she remembered without a reminder. When she texted me at work yesterday, I was shocked to realize it was my birthday. I replied, "Okay, see you at the restaurant tomorrow evening." Then I continued working without feeling sweet for long. Tonight, after work, I got a message from Ruby. "See you at the restaurant." After work, I got to the restaurant first. The reservation was for 7, but I arrived at 6:30. By 8, Ruby still hadn't shown up. I called, no answer. Texted, no reply. At 9:30, a waiter asked if I wanted to order since they close at 10:30. I nodded. I slowly finished my steak and wine and left at 10:30. While waiting for a ride, I saw Evan's social media post. "You're my sense of belonging." It was a picture of Ruby sitting by a sofa. Seeing that picture, I felt no anger, no sadness, just calm, almost like the satisfaction of solving a mystery. See? I knew it. She stood me up for Evan each time. Oddly, this time I wasn't upset at all. Back home, I went straight to bed after washing up. Late at night, deep in sleep, I heard the door open. I knew Ruby was back. Woken up, I felt irritated. So I kept my eyes closed and pretended to sleep, avoiding her. Her soft footsteps stopped by the bed for a long time without any movement. Though my eyes were shut, I felt her stare intensely. What's Ruby's problem? Not cleaning up before bed and just staring at me? So annoying being disturbed. Is she mad I didn't wait in the living room with the lights on angrily, then question and argue with her? She should be happy. After all, in those past arguments, she would coldly watch, full of impatience and disdain. Her aloof gaze, like watching a clown throwing a tantrum. In the past, when I argued about Evan, she'd explain they were just friends, never crossing the line, and I was overthinking. Later, she couldn't even be bothered to explain. She'd let me rage until I cooled down. Now I've let go. I finally understood and moved on. Thinking of my past self, I was indeed crazy, always losing it and looking pathetic. No wonder Ruby abhorred it. Now I have no desire to question, just to sleep. After staring for a while, she called softly, "Brian?" I remained motionless, feigning sleep. Eventually, she left, and I heard the water running. It oddly lulled me back to sleep, unaware of her coming to bed. The next morning, I went straight to work. All day, I stayed immersed in my job and time flew by. After work, I grabbed dinner before going home. As I entered, there was Ruby on the couch. "Why are you home early?" I asked while changing shoes. "No overtime," she replied. "Oh," I nodded, setting my bag down and heading to my study. "Brian," she called. "I bought your birthday gift, but..." "Thanks." I took the small, fancy box from her. Inside was a beautiful watch. "Nice, I like it." I smiled at her. "I'll wear it tomorrow." As I turned, Ruby pulled my arm. Sorry about last night, I got caught up with Evan. His ex showed up again and he was in a mess. As his friend, I helped. I believe you, I interrupted. It's tough dealing with someone clingy like her, you mentioned it before. Alright, I've got work to finish, need to get back to it. Brian. She still wouldn't let go. I looked at her, puzzled. I haven't eaten. Oh, I've already had dinner. Order takeout, I said, freeing my arm and heading to the study. Soon after, I heard the front door slam. I checked. Ruby had left. She gifted me, offered a way to smooth things over, but I didn't follow. Now she's mad. Ruby and I are in another Cold War. During past Cold Wars, I was miserable, racking my brain for ways to reconcile quickly. And now, after a few days of the silent treatment, I actually feel kinda relieved. At night, Ruby sleeps in the guest room and I get to enjoy the whole bed. Honestly, I sleep better this way. In the morning, I don't have to wake up early to make Ruby breakfast, so I snag an extra half-hour of sleep every day. At work, Ruby's face doesn't keep popping into my head, and I'm not constantly messaging her. My work efficiency has actually improved a lot. What used to take me until the end of the day to finish, I now get done early. After work, I don't feel like cooking dinner anymore. I used to practice my cooking skills a lot just to make healthy meals for Ruby. But she's out at parties a ton and rarely eats at home anyway. Without my world revolving around Ruby, I found I suddenly have a lot of free time. I managed to binge watch a TV series in 3 nights. In the office, I overheard a new girl mentioning she's studying for a certification related to our work. I felt embarrassed. She just graduated and is already trying to level up. Yet here I am, drifting through each day without direction. I blame my past self for being too love-struck. After graduating, my only goal was to marry Ruby. To this day, that goal remains unmet. My life used to revolve entirely around Ruby. I even thought that if we got married and she wanted me to quit my job to take care of the home, I'd do it without hesitation. Getting married to Ruby, having a kid, and taking care of our little family seemed like the dream life to me. Now that I've snapped out of it, I've realized just how much of a failure I've been. I've given so much in the relationship without getting the same in return. She won't even give me a commitment of marriage. Work-wise, I've been a mess with zero progress. But seeing the enthusiasm of the new girl motivated me. I figured it was time to change. I humbly asked my coworkers for advice, bought some study materials, and started preparing for certifications. Each day after work, I'd grab a quick bite, then dive into studying until bedtime. These days, Ruby still seems to be in a mood, coming back home late. It's fine by me, really. With the house quiet, it's the perfect environment for studying. While scrolling through my phone during lunch, I noticed Ruby posted something on social media, which was rare. It was just a photo, no caption. The picture showed a dining table with a few dishes and 2 sets of utensils. In one corner of the photo, a hand with a bracelet I had bought her was visible. I knew Ruby too well. She posted this photo of her dining with Evan just to get under my skin. But honestly, I didn't feel any anger or jealousy. I wasn't going to pick up the phone and angrily question her either. I just glanced at it and then continued scrolling through other updates. That evening, I got a call from Ruby. "I'll come to meet you after work," she said, her voice betraying no emotion. My first reaction was to reject the offer. "No need, I'm working late today. I'll be back late." I instinctively lied. "How late?" She continued to press. 8, I hesitated but stuck to my story. "All right, see you downstairs at 8. She hung up. Not wanting to get caught in my lie, I stayed at the office after work to study for my exam. At 8, I packed my stuff and headed downstairs. As soon as I stepped out the door, I saw her familiar car parked not far away. I walked over and opened the car door. Evan was sitting in the front passenger seat. He gave me a grin. "Brian just had dinner with Ruby. She's dropping me off on her way." "Uh-huh." I nodded, opening the back door and sliding in. Whenever Evan was in the car, I never sat in the front. We argued about this many times, but Ruby clearly preferred Evan's company and there was nothing I could do. She'd say Evan got carsick and just needed the front seat, wondering why I made a fuss over a trivial matter. I'd argue that the front seat was for her intended partner, and she'd just laugh it off. I never won when it came to Evan, and each time it happened, it left me feeling down. But now I didn't care much anymore. After a full day at work and 2 hours of studying, I quickly grew drowsy once I got in the car. Evan, those crawfish were delicious tonight. We have to come again, Ruby said excitedly. Evan laughed. Yeah, if you like them, we'll come back. But I feel guilty having you peel the shells for me every time. Doesn't it get annoying? Ruby teased. Evan responded, not at all, I'm used to it. Next time, I'll peel them for you too. Nah, just sit back and relax. Does Brian make you peel crawfish too? Evan turned to look at me. I once saw a celebrity say she loved lobster but wouldn't eat it unless someone else peeled it for her. After my first time taking Ruby to eat crawfish, I peeled a whole bowl for her. She just paused and said with a detached look, thanks, but I have hands. I can peel them myself. The one who loves more is always the one at a disadvantage, so I stopped peeling. I glanced at Evan. Although the car was dimly lit, I could still catch the smugness and provocation in his eyes. He always tried to rile me up, hoping for Ruby to intervene and take his side. He found this game delightful. But now I didn't rise to his bait. I felt no urge to argue. Realizing he didn't provoke a reaction, Evan frowned a bit and turned back to chat cheerfully with Ruby, whose tone was always gentle with him. Listening to them talk animatedly, my eyes grew heavy, and I slowly drifted off. When I woke up, we were parked under the apartment building, Ruby quietly sitting in the front seat. Evan had already left. We're home. Why didn't you wake me? I asked, sitting upright and opening the door. Ruby followed me out, silent. As we stepped out of the elevator and into the apartment, she finally spoke. Are you really tired? Huh? I was still chatting with Evan. You fell asleep in the car. Yeah, I was a bit tired. I'm not interested in chatting with her. Just want to shower and sleep. Today was a hangout arranged by Tina's group, the same people from the college dorm. She's the one who invited Evan. You know they are all close and like to invite him for meals. Since it was on the way, I gave him a ride back. She suddenly started explaining. Funny how she never bothered to explain when I used to ask why she hung out with Evan so much. Now that I don't ask, she explains on her own. I nodded and headed to the bathroom. I wanted to take you, but you said you had to work late, so I came by after dinner. She continued explaining. All right, got it, going to shower now. I darted away. After showering, I went straight to bed. The next evening after work, I saw Ruby downstairs again. This time, Evan wasn't in the car. I still got in the back seat. Ruby glanced at me. Seemed like she was about to say something but didn't. Funny enough, sitting in the back makes her feel like a chauffeur, and that feels kinda great. I really shouldn't have been bothered by it before. Coco's moving today and invited us over for hot pot. As the car started, Ruby mentioned. Coco was one of her college roommates. Coincidentally, all 4 of Ruby's college roommates stayed in the city after graduation. They have a great bond and often hang out or have dinner together. Ruby used to have a crush on Evan in college, and her roommates would act as her strategists, helping her out. She didn't succeed, but that didn't stop Evan from becoming part of their group. Over the years, Evan's had a few girlfriends, but he says, girlfriends are girlfriends, friends are friends. Ruby will always be his good friend. Recently, Evan broke up with his girlfriend and started hanging out with them a lot again. Every time I saw Ruby watching over him, it drove me nuts. I argued and fussed, but nothing worked, so I just stopped going to their gatherings. What you don't see doesn't bother you. You guys go ahead and have fun. Just drop me off first. I said, I really have no interest in their gatherings. Ruby, we'll be back after the dinner. Won't be too late. Coco specifically requested to bring you along. Said she hasn't seen you in ages. All right. I didn't insist further. We stood in front of Coco's new place, and when the doorbell rang, the door opened. Someone darted out like a monkey, jumped on Ruby's back, and hugged her neck tightly. It happened so fast that Ruby almost lost her balance, though she seemed used to it. Haha. Ruby, you're late. Punishment. Carry me for 10 seconds. Evan boasted on her back. Ruby froze, then looked at me. Seeing the panic in her eyes, I smiled back. She paused, then quickly pushed Evan off. Caught off guard, Evan stumbled. He slapped Ruby playfully and complained, "Why'd you do that?" I nearly twisted my ankle. Looking up, he seemed to notice me for the first time and exclaimed, "Wow, Brian's here too. We were just messing around. We used to do this as punishment in games. You don't mind, right, Brian?" "I don't mind. Do whatever, I'll just watch TV." I picked up the remote and started choosing a show. "By the way, Brian, Ruby's really strong. She can carry me for over 10 seconds. "Really? Haven't seen that. Why not show me now?" I said, putting down the remote and looking over with interest. "I'm heading to the kitchen to help Coco." Ruby stood up suddenly, expressionless, and walked to the kitchen. The rest of us sat there looking at each other. At the hot pot dinner, I sat to Ruby's left, Evan to her right. "Oops, accidentally picked up some lamb," Evan said as he dropped it into Ruby's bowl. In the past, they'd often do these boundary-less things, but now it doesn't stir any emotions in me. Coco's cooking was great. I got so caught up eating I didn't realize how full I was getting. After dinner, Evan suggested playing games. I thought about needing to study and decided to leave. "You guys play? I'm heading back." I stood up. "I'll leave too." Ruby stood up. "No need, you guys play, I can grab a cab." I genuinely meant it. Something seemed to upset Ruby. She looked displeased and said coldly, "Let's go now." "Well, I'll leave too then. Didn't drive today, so I'll hitch a ride with Ruby," Evan said. When we got to the car, I just opened the back door and climbed in. Once in, I got on my phone to do some study questions. Before taking the exam, I planned to study for 2 hours every day. Today was too busy at work, so I hadn't studied at all, and I really needed to catch up. I planned to use the next half-hour drive home to study, then only another hour and a half when home. After some intense studying, I noticed the car was unusually quiet today. "Ruby, earlier when I talked to you, you were really dismissive. Always just saying or oh. Keep it up, and I'm gonna be upset." After a quiet moment, Evan spoke up. "Ruby, I'm tired today." "Evan, don't disturb my driving." "Humph." Evan stayed silent after that. When we stopped, he slammed the car door shut to show his displeasure. Once home, I headed straight to the study. An hour and a half later, I came out to find Ruby had gone to the guest room. I felt relieved. After we started arguing, we've been sleeping in separate rooms. Ruby's always been proud, and if I don't make the first move, she wouldn't budge, which is fine by me. In the morning, I came out of the bedroom and was surprised to find Ruby up already. "You go ahead and wash up, no rush. I'll give you a ride," she said, looking at me from the couch. "No need, I'll ride with a coworker." As I was leaving, she followed behind me. "You're better off in my car. Bothering others isn't nice." "It's not a bother. I'm paying them." Ruby said she wanted her own car, so once we got it, she was the one driving it. At first, she was happy to give me rides. But then, she got fed up with it. Our workplaces weren't exactly on the same route. She had to make a detour, and she thought it was a waste of time. "You should take the subway from now on. I want to sleep in a bit longer in the mornings." She just tossed that at me and never drove me to work again. After work, she had even more excuses not to pick me up. Overtime, going out with coworkers for dinner, hanging out with friends. She always seemed to have a reason to miss my end time. Then, a coworker in our group chat asked if anyone was heading in the same direction and could carpool with her, but they'd have to chip in for gas. Thankfully, we were on the same route, so I started riding with her to work every day. It was cheaper and saved time compared to the subway. As for heading home after work, if I took her car daily, I'd have to shell out an extra $200 a month. Since I wasn't in a hurry at night, taking the subway seemed more sensible and saved me some cash. Ruby would drop me off at the community gate and watch me hop into that coworker's car. As soon as I got to my office, Ruby texted me. "So, you're the only one riding with your coworker?" I replied, "Yup, just us from the company on this route." "From now on, I'll take you," she texted. "A young guy and girl going to work together like that, people will gossip." "No one's gossiping. Also, didn't you say you wanted to sleep in the mornings?" I reminded her. "Starting tomorrow, I'll wake up with you every day. Let's talk about it next month. I've already paid my share to someone else this month." There was no reply after that. I just got back to focusing on my work. Come lunchtime, Ruby sent me another message. It was a photo. How's the cafeteria food at your office? I didn't respond. Then another text popped up. What did you eat for lunch? I couldn't figure out if Ruby was just sharing a slice of her life with me. This used to be my thing. I scrolled through our past chat logs. Tons of texts all from my end. Because I liked Ruby, I felt the urge to share everything with her. Spotting a cute dog on the street, a delicious drink, a boss's compliment or critique, stumbling while walking, finding a new trendy spot, small stuff in life, but I loved sharing it with her. When we first started dating, it was a two-way street. Gradually, it just turned into me sending tons of texts, and she'd reply to the last one with a couple of words. I got it. She probably didn't even bother reading most of what I sent. Initially, I felt disappointed, but eventually, I got used to it. After all, I was the one who liked her. I was the one who loved her in a somewhat pathetic way. Eventually, my eagerness to share fizzled out. I lost the urge to text her. Looking at the recent chat history, I realized I hadn't initiated any message with her for a week. It was Friday, and a coworker suggested we all go out for dinner that night. I usually wouldn't join such gatherings. When I first started working, I joined for dinners now and then. But Ruby often went out with her college roommates for dinner, so she'd only eat at home 2 or 3 times a week. One time, I was having dinner with coworkers, and Ruby got home early. She called asking where I was. I felt awful. She rarely ate at home, and I missed a chance to have dinner together. So, I stopped attending coworker gatherings, hoping not to miss any chance to dine with Ruby. Because of that, my connections with coworkers remained average at best. After a few years of working, even with those in the same office, I didn't have any close ties. Thinking it over, I said to the coworker next to me, "Where's dinner tonight? Count me in." My coworker yelled out in surprise, "Wow, Brian's coming along. No one bails tonight. This is a rare full team gathering." As we were wrapping up the workday, Ruby called, "Brian, I'll pick you up later. Let's buy some groceries. It's been ages since we had dinner at home together." "No need. I'm dining with coworkers tonight. Can't skip it, you know? I never go to these things, so I'm already less of a team player. Can't pass this one up." I cut off whatever she was about to add. This dinner was a big deal. Everyone from our department showed up. Everyone was in high spirits, and I even had a bit of wine. In the middle of it, Ruby kept calling, asking when we'd be done so she could pick me up. "No need," I told her. "I might finish late. No idea when we'll wrap up. Everyone's having a great time. Just go to sleep." "Where's the dinner?" Ruby asked. "I'll head over now and wait for you outside. It's late and you've been drinking. Not safe for you to head home alone." Was this Ruby talking? Couldn't believe it. She had once refused to pick me up from the airport past midnight, saying she needed to wake up early the next day and couldn't stay up. Are women really this fickle? At around 9:30, Ruby texted that she was just outside the restaurant. By the time the dinner was over, it was close to 10. As we stepped out, there she was at the door. "Did you drink?" she asked, walking over to steady me. "A bit of wine. I'm not great with alcohol, just 1 glass and I'm tipsy." She made sure I was snug in the passenger seat, even buckled me in. Without starting the car, she leaned in closer and hugged me. "So, this is what waiting feels like. Sorry, Brian, for making you wait so many times before. Won't happen again." I scrunched my face, mumbling, "Just drive. I want to get home and crash." With a soft laugh, she ruffled my hair. "How can you drink with such a weak tolerance? I'll have to keep an eye on you. You'd be sold before you even knew it." It was as if Ruby had become someone else entirely. She became the clingy one in our relationship. Every day she picked me up from work, stopped seeing those roommates, and insisted on having dinner at home with me. I mentioned needing time to study and prepare for exams and that I didn't have the time or energy to cook. She just said she'd handle it, and she really did. Every evening she swung by the nearby store, got groceries, and headed straight to the kitchen when we got home. All this time I'd thought Ruby couldn't cook. She'd never made a meal for me, but surprisingly she was pretty good at it. Turns out it wasn't a matter of ability, it was more about willingness. Evan once posted a picture of porridge Ruby made him on social media. Now, Ruby can't wait to show off all her cooking skills to me, with no repeat dishes every day. After meals, she won't let me do the dishes, pushing me to study instead. Her thoughtfulness just makes me uncomfortable. I don't feel relaxed at all, only more stressed. Because when I'm studying, she frequently opens the door to my study, asking if I need water or some fruit. It interrupts me. I get irritated. So, I lied to her, saying I've been working overtime and wouldn't get off until 8. In reality, I just stay at the office to study. Without her interruptions, I can finally have some peace. That day, after work, I got out my study materials. Half an hour later, there was a blackout throughout the building. I asked the security guy, and he said he didn't know what was wrong with the lines, but someone was working on it. I packed my stuff and headed straight to the coffee shop across the street. I ordered a coffee and spent 2 hours working through exam questions. When I was done, I headed back to the office building across the street. I told Ruby not to pick me up because of overtime. Yet, she still insisted on coming every evening at 8. As I got downstairs, her car drove up. She's been extra chatty lately, always finding topics to talk about, asking how work's going, if my study's on track, and how I'm getting along with colleagues. Even if I only answered half-heartedly, she kept her enthusiasm. But tonight, she was silent all the way home. Finally, I could close my eyes and relax a bit. After we got home and I started changing my shoes, Ruby finally broke the silence. "You haven't been working overtime, have you?" I was caught off guard and admitted no. "Every day, I drive straight to your office after work and wait in my car for an hour and a half, usually around 6:30, till you come out. Today was no different, but when I got there, the building went dark. I saw you running out the front entrance but couldn't call out before you hurried across the street. I followed and watched you studying at the cafe until 8. Oh, so you saw me. Why didn't you call me?" I felt a bit awkward. "So you weren't working overtime, just studying at the office, right? Why don't you study at home? Are you tired of coming home, Brian, before we even got married? Do you prefer hiding out at the office rather than seeing me? Tell me what I'm doing wrong, and I'll change." With the conversation here, I bit my lip. "Okay, I think we need to talk about our relationship, Brian." Ruby interrupted suddenly. "I just remembered I have to go on a business trip tomorrow to a nearby city. I need to get up early, so let's talk when I'm back." Perhaps it's my imagination, but her eyes seemed frightened. I sighed. "All right. Have you packed yet?" "Not yet." "Then hurry and pack. I'm going to shower." Once, I always packed her bags for trips, but I no longer have the patience. The next morning, as I watched her leave with her suitcase, I surprisingly felt a long-lost sense of relief. I won't have to face her for a few days. I can finally enjoy some alone time. On the third day of Ruby's trip, I got a call from Evan during lunch. He told me Ruby had a bad cold and was at the central hospital getting in 4. During my lunch break, I took a cab to the hospital. Ruby was pale, leaning weakly on a recliner with an 4 drip. She indeed looked quite ill. "Didn't you go on a business trip?" I walked up to her. Ruby opened her eyes, and she looked surprised and guilty when she saw me. "Brian, why are you here? Who told you?" "I did." Evan walked in with a cup of hot water. He looked at me sternly. "What did you do to Ruby to make her not dare to go home, hiding out at Coco's? What kind of domineering person are you?" I turned to Ruby. "You said business trip." Ruby couldn't meet my eyes and weakly said, "Sorry, Brian, I lied. I didn't go on a trip." I got the point. She was avoiding me. She recognized that there was a problem between us. The last time she exposed my fake overtime story, I was ready to use it as an opportunity to have a proper talk with her. Yet she used the business trip lie to dodge it, preferring staying at a friend's rather than facing our issues. "Ruby, avoidance isn't a solution. You know, our relationship needs discussion." "Okay, can we talk after I recover?" She pleaded with her eyes. "All right." I nodded. "Get some rest. I'm heading back to work." "Brian, aren't you staying?" She looked at me pitifully. "It's just a cold," I said in a cold tone. "You're an adult. There's no need to be so dramatic about it, right?" At these words, Ruby froze and looked up sharply. I could tell from her hurt eyes that she got it. These words were exactly what she once said to me. Last winter, I had a fever of 101.3 degrees and went to the hospital at night for an 4 drip. Seeing everyone accompanied by someone while I was alone, I couldn't help but call Ruby, asking her to come to the hospital. She coldly refused, saying, "You're an adult, no need to be dramatic about it, right? It's just a cold. Can't get in 4 without me?" Through the phone came loud music, and Evan was shouting, "Ruby, it's your turn to sing." I had a bad cold, while she was out singing with friends. In that moment, my heart felt ice cold. Blame my weakness. After a few days of silent treatment, she sweet-talked me back. Ruby likely recalled this incident too. Her voice trembled. "I'm sorry." The words from her own lips cut like a sword, though she seemed oblivious at the time. Only when the sword turned on her did she understand the sting of harsh words. People like her, unless they experience it themselves, never know what empathy really means. Evan, who couldn't bear to watch, looked tenderly at Ruby. "You're sick. As your boyfriend, he's indifferent and about to leave you behind. Why should you be apologizing?" I chuckled softly. "See? You aren't lacking in care and attention. Of course, I'm not as heartless as you. I'll take good care of Ruby," Evan said loudly with his head held high. I had nothing to say, so I just turned around and walked away. That evening, Ruby didn't come home. She texted me saying she's staying at Coco's for a bit until she feels better. And then she talked to me seriously. To be honest, I had already made up my mind about our relationship, and that was to break up. Breaking up is easy to say, but it's tough to really follow through. Ruby and I have been together for so long, from junior year in college to now, more than 5 years after graduation. We dated for 7 years. In the early years, we truly loved each other, and we were genuinely happy. We had loads of free time in college, so we spent our weekends exploring every part of the city. The city witnessed our beautiful moments, and every scenic spot has a photo of us. During graduation season, we helped each other polish up our resumes and went to every career fair together. Once we both secured jobs, we celebrated by drinking beers and singing loudly on a mountain top. We rented an apartment and put so much love into decorating our little home while dreaming of a great future. Those were happy days. When did things start to change between us? Probably when Ruby's interest began to drift. To be precise, it started when Evan came back into our lives. In college, I had heard Evan's name. Ruby and I were in the same department of the student council and got along quite well. Friends around her mentioned she was chasing a guy named Evan. But Evan and I weren't even in the same major, so I'd never met him. In my eyes, Ruby was a super talented girl. She was so capable that by sophomore year, she became our department head. The student council president was grooming her as a successor. Her professional achievements were outstanding, earning her scholarships every single semester. She was also so kind. During a student council event, a major error happened due to another department member. But Ruby took all the blame herself. Anytime I faced a problem and asked for her advice, she would patiently help me. I think my initial attraction to Ruby started with admiration. Besides her inner beauty, she was stunning on the outside too. With a graceful figure and a flawless face, she was perfect. In my eyes, Ruby was an absolute gem. Someone who made my heart skip a beat. Yet, even with all these qualities, she chased Evan for 2 years without success. After Evan started dating someone else, Ruby visibly became despondent. Even her smiles looked bitter. I felt bad for her and thought she deserved better. Such an amazing girl. Why didn't Evan like her? In junior year, on an otherwise ordinary night after student council, I gathered all my courage and confessed my feelings to Ruby. To my joy, she said yes. Once we started dating, Ruby seemed happier by the day, and she smiled more often. From the way she looked at me, I knew she liked me too. Just before graduating, Ruby and I ran into Evan on campus. I didn't recognize him at first, but noticed she was staring at the guy. Then, I knew he was the one who kept rejecting her, the guy she couldn't have. Evan had his arm around his girlfriend at the time. I got why Evan rejected Ruby then. His girlfriend wasn't particularly attractive and looked quite chubby, like 2 of him combined. but she wore all designer brands. Ruby lost out there. She had everything but one thing. Her family background was too ordinary. She worked hard and was a town girl, her parents just regular working folks. Even Evan's shoes cost over 10 grand. That's something Ruby couldn't give him. After graduation, Evan moved to another place. 3 years ago, he came back to the city and began popping up in our lives a lot, as Ruby's friend. Ruby's heartstrings were tugged, slowly drifting away in our relationship. No matter what, just one call from Evan could pull her away from my side. I argued, I complained, but it only pushed Ruby further away, making her more impatient with me. I thought about breaking up, but I was reluctant. I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I let go? No matter how intense our arguments got, I never once brought up breaking up. I was scared that if I said it, Ruby might agree right away. Then there would be no turning back. Deep down, I knew I still loved Ruby and wasn't ready to end it. I thought I'd always just hang in there with her. But I didn't expect to reach a point of exhaustion. All that love that was once full just spilled out until there was none left. I didn't realize that I could run out of love for her. But when I noticed she no longer made my heart flutter, I knew I was over it. I have no regrets, just a sense of relief. Deciding to break up was something I thought through carefully during this time. If I confirmed that I didn't love her anymore, there was no point in staying together. There was a time when I thought we'd always be together, get married, have kids, and grow old side by side. I imagined our bright future so many times. But cutting my losses isn't such a bad idea. At 28, I'm not exactly young, and maybe I'll never find another love like this one. But so what? Life isn't all about love. At the same time, I'm not too old either. It's not too late to adjust and start over. I have no regrets about this relationship. We started beautiful, and I got to feel what being loved was like. In this relationship, I loved sincerely, I gave a lot, and I gained a lot as well. I don't feel like I wasted my youth. This experience made me more mature and graceful. I can love deeply, and I can let go freely. The next day and the day after that, Ruby still hadn't come back. I'm not sure if she's still avoiding the situation. Just as I planned to look for her after work to face the issue head-on, I got a call from my mom. She said my dad's been complaining about leg pain lately. They went for an X-ray but found nothing. I felt uneasy and said, "Why don't you come over tomorrow? I'll take Dad for a full checkup. A big hospital's more reliable." "Mom, you should get a complete health check too. My parents live in a small town back home. It takes just over an hour to get to the city by high-speed train." I took 2 days off and went to the train station around 9 in the morning to pick them up. After my dad finished his checkup, we were relieved to find it wasn't anything serious. He just needs to rest. Mom's health check came back fine too. With Friday left off and the weekend ahead, I decided to take them out for some fun. I booked them a room at a hotel, and we had a blast for 3 days, taking lots of photos. On the way to the train station, I picked a group photo of the 3 of us and posted it on my social media. Just as I finished posting, Ruby called. "Your parents are here? Why didn't you tell me? Why should I tell you? I could have joined you to show them around. Didn't you say you weren't good with elders and weren't ready to meet the parents?" Silence on the other end. "Let's meet up tonight and talk." Ignoring it won't solve anything. I hung up. Ruby and I have been together for 7 years, but we haven't met each other's parents. Initially, it was because we were young and not thinking long-term. After turning 25, I started thinking about marriage. During the new year, I hinted to Ruby that I wanted her to come home with me. She declined, saying it was too sudden without telling her parents first. Last May Day, when my parents came to visit, I wanted Ruby to join us. She refused again, saying she wasn't good with elders and wasn't ready to meet my folks, accusing me of pressuring her. After that, I stopped bringing up meeting the parents. At the train station, since we had some time before their departure, I sat with my parents chatting outside. As it got closer to time, I walked them to the entrance. "Brian," a familiar voice called behind me. I turned around and saw Ruby, her hands full of gift boxes. "Hi, I'm Brian's girlfriend. Sorry I was busy these days and couldn't join you." She smiled, speaking to my parents. These are health supplements I got for you, a small gesture, please don't mind. My parents looked at her, then at me, not sure what to make of it. Parents, it's almost time you should go. I'll explain later. I urged them. They went inside, confused. I turned, my face changed. Ruby, who asked you to come? I'm your girlfriend. It's rude not to greet your parents when they're here. Now you care about being rude? You didn't say that before. Brian, I was immature before. I'm sorry. What you did today was presumptuous. Let's go home, I have things to say. Inside the house, I got straight to the point. I've been ignoring the problems between us, pretending they're not there, but our situation's been off for a while. I've thought deeply about it and made up my mind. Ruby, Brian, let's get married. Ruby cut me off, pulling out a small fancy box from her pocket. She opened it to reveal a beautiful men's diamond ring. I was taken aback. I've been thinking about proposing. She continued. The past few days I searched everywhere for this ring. It's the style you like. It was a heart-shaped design I indeed liked, similar to one I showed her on my phone once. Back then, I casually asked if it looked nice, trying to gauge her stance on marriage. She glanced at it, pushing away a magazine, saying it looked awful. I felt disappointed then. I genuinely wanted to marry her. I dreamed about it. Now, faced with her proposal, I no longer felt joy. Hopes have expiration dates, and this one had expired. Brian, will you marry me? Ruby looked at me earnestly. No. Each word was wrapped in finality. It wasn't surprising. She didn't look shocked. She forced a sad smile, like she might cry. Was it on your birthday? I didn't catch her drift. The day after your birthday, you stopped making breakfast, stopped texting. When I went out, you stopped calling to check where I was. When Evan got close, you didn't get mad. It all changed that night. I shook my head. No, that night was just the straw that broke the camel's back. The issues built up over time. I know I've messed up, and you're right to be angry. Brian, just one more chance. I swear I'll change. I'll be the girlfriend you want, until you want to marry me. Her voice wavered with emotion. I'll make breakfast every morning, pick you up for work. No one else will sit in my passenger seat. We'll travel wherever you want. I'll reduce hanging out with friends, eat at home every night. I'll never forget your birthday or miss any anniversaries. I met her eyes without a word. With Evan, I handled things wrong. I won't see him again. I'll delete his contacts. I sighed gently. See, you know what you shouldn't have done. As a girlfriend, you knew what was inappropriate, yet you did it. You even turned it around on me. You didn't care about me, counting on my feelings for you to overlook disrespect, thinking I wouldn't leave. That's what happens when someone feels too secure. Sorry, was all she said. We're no longer in love. Breaking up is the best ending. No, Brian. I still love you. Always have. Sorry, I'm not feeling your love at all. What I feel from you is coldness, neglect, and being walked over. I think the person you really love is Evan. You're always there for him, ready to give him anything, caring for him. That's real love. I thought maybe I still had feelings for him too, but that was just an illusion. When I realized you were about to leave, I figured out my love was for you all along. The thought of losing you is unbearable. Even when Evan dated so many girls, I never felt like this. I even felt jealous when you rode in another woman's car. I was stupid, slow to realize my feelings for you. What I felt for Evan was just a bit of leftover frustration from not having him. My damn pride playing tricks on me, unable to control my impulsive heart. I'm over you. I say it calmly. I don't want to settle anymore to be with you. I'm great. I deserve a happy relationship, someone who focuses on loving me. Ruby squatted down, desperate, covering her head. I was just about to pack my bags when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Evan there with a backpack, looking frantic. Ruby, did you delete me? And you're not picking up my calls. How could you do this to me? Evan, with tears on his face, squatted across from Ruby. My apartment's pipes burst, and you're the only one who can take me in. I hadn't said anything yet when he suddenly looked up, glaring at me with confidence. This is Ruby's place. You have no right to oppose. I didn't oppose, do whatever you want. I said as I headed back to pack my things. Get out. Ruby's voice screamed, echoing from the living room. Ruby, you're yelling at me? Evan sounded utterly in disbelief. You've never been harsh with me. How could you? I won't say it again, you're not welcome here. Now get out. After a few minutes of silence, I heard the door slam shut. I only packed the important clothes, leaving the rest behind. All in all, just 2 suitcases. Dragging my suitcases out, I saw Ruby was alone in the living room. She ran over, panicking, grabbing my suitcase. Please don't go. Brian, I beg you. Stop wasting your time. I calmly took back my luggage. Just as I was about to leave, she called after me, you won't ever forgive me. Will you? I turned back. Goodbye, Ruby. Goodbye to the person I once loved with all my heart. With this departure, may we go our separate ways and never meet again. Since I planned to break up, I had already found a new place online. Dragging the 2 suitcases, I headed to the roadside to hail a cab. Just as I got into the taxi, I heard someone from the roadside. Brian, wait! Ruby shouted at me, loudly. Then my phone rang. So we can't even be friends after the breakup? She chuckled bitterly. Now I realize what a terrible girlfriend I was. For the past 2 years, I've been neglecting you, not taking care of you. No wonder you're leaving me, it's my fault for doing so poorly. I'm going to change, become the Ruby you loved before or even better. I won't disappoint you again. I sighed, no need now, we're already broken up, no need to meet again. And with that, I hung up. I've adjusted well to my new life. I've been keeping busy, from cleaning my new place, buying furniture, to focusing on work and studying for a certification. From the moment I wake up until I hit the bed at night, I'm always on the move. It's busy, but I enjoy it. Life is fulfilling and happy. I haven't thought about Ruby, not even once. I thought, after breaking up, we'd never see each other again. That was my plan anyway. We didn't share the same major, we work in different fields, and we have no mutual friends. Basically, no chance of running into each other. So, seeing Ruby at my door was surprising. And more shocking was her being at my doorstep. What are you doing here? I blurted. I'm home. She pointed next door. You've got to be kidding? I didn't believe it. I'm not joking, she said, holding up a bag. Just went to the store. Bought stuff for hot pot tonight. Want to join? Ruby, are you out of your mind? Why'd you move here? I'm not crazy. I'm clear-headed and know exactly what I'm doing. She smiled. You're an adult, you should have basic judgment. You've got a place already, why rent another? You're just throwing away money. Plus, it's on the opposite side of the city from work. You're spending way too much time commuting. You're almost 30. Why are you doing something so childish? You're too old to be acting on impulse. Ruby smiled lightly. Brian, I'm happy that you still care for me. Ridiculous. I turned away, not wanting to engage, and took out my key to unlock my door. Brian, I'm not acting on impulse. I'm not being unreasonable, she said from behind. I know if I don't try to win you back, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. She paused. Moving here was a thought-out decision because I honestly didn't know what else to do. I broke your heart? I'm terrible. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I couldn't bear it. I don't want to leave you. The thought of days without you is like a dagger to my heart. I can't just stand still and do nothing. Moving here was my only way to be close to you. If I annoy you, you can ignore me. Just treat me like any other neighbor. I'll try not to disturb you. Just knowing you're nearby and occasionally seeing you is enough. If you face any difficulties, like if you're upset and need someone, call me. I'll be there right away. I won't let you down again. I let you down too many times before. I'll prove with my actions that I've changed. Renting a place here costs extra. The old place holds our memories, and your stuff's still there. I can't bring myself to rent it out. This commute takes 2 to 3 hours each way. All in all, it's quite a hassle. But I think it's worth it. Seeing you, getting another chance to chase you, none of this feels like a cost to me. You also said I'm an adult and know what I'm doing. Compared to losing you, nothing else matters. I'm not looking back. Let's cancel the house plan and move back. I don't want to give you hope. Ruby, I'm not going back on my decisions. I'm fine with never turning back unless I hit a wall. There's no pressure. This was my choice, and no matter the outcome, I'll accept it. Even if you refuse me, I'd need to see you fall in love and get married to truly let go. Don't try to persuade me, Brian. I'm not going back. Ruby was true to her word. She didn't come to bother me. Since she lived far away, she had to get up early to drive to work. By the time she got back, I'd already been home for hours. It was hard for us to run into each other. It's been a week since we bumped into each other on Saturday, and we haven't crossed paths again. This Sunday morning, I need to take an exam. I've been studying daily for months and feel pretty good about it. I checked my admission ticket, pens, and erasers, and felt at ease as I headed downstairs. But not long after, I wasn't feeling so calm. The car I'd booked online had an accident on the way and couldn't make it. I tried booking 2 other rides, but they were too far away. The system wouldn't let me book another one. Anxiously, I stood by the road trying to hail a cab. Maybe it was because it was Sunday, but all the cars already had passengers. Despite leaving with plenty of time, I watched the minutes slip away, and my anxiety grew. Sweat trickled down my forehead. I debated if it was still worth running to the subway station. Looking at my shoes, I wished I hadn't worn these small leather ones. Just as I braced myself to run, I heard Ruby's voice. "Get in, I'll take you." Time was tight. I climbed in without thinking twice. In the car, I wiped my sweat with a tissue. Ruby reassured me. "It's okay, the exam starts at 9. We'll make it." "How did you know I had an exam today? And the location?" I finally relaxed, curious about these details. "I saw you studying and checked online. There's only one test center here in our old school." She chuckled. "Thank you." I said sincerely, "If it weren't for you, I'd have probably missed the exam." "No biggie. I'll transfer you the fare later, at the rate of a private hire." Ruby's voice turned somber. "Do we have to be like this? Brian, even if we're not a couple, can't we be friends? Treating me like a stranger, that hurts. It's hard for exes to stay friends, you know that." Not wanting to dive deeper into it, Ruby changed the subject. "You've got everything for the exam, right?" Before I could answer, she continued. "As long as you've got the admission ticket, missing anything else doesn't matter. I've got a kit ready in this little drawer here." I opened it to find a file bag. Inside were 5 black pens, 5 2B pencils, 5 erasers, and 2 rulers. I glanced over at her. "Why go through all this? I just want to be there for you when you need me." She said brightly, "I bought these tools ages ago, just in case you needed them. I saw you heading out for the exam today and wanted to offer a ride, but I thought you might refuse, so I stayed not far from your place. When I saw your ride had an issue and you were panicking, I couldn't help but drive over. I hope I'm at least a bit helpful, right?" "Yeah." I stayed silent afterward. When we reached the school, I thanked her again. "I really appreciate today." Quickly glancing at the schedule, I rushed to the classroom. The 2.5 hours flew by as I stayed busy with the test. Heading out to the school gate, I saw Ruby waving at me. "Why are you still here?" I asked. "Didn't want you to struggle finding another ride home, so I stayed put." Before I could respond, she added, "Been waiting for over 2 hours, so let's just consider it convenient." I've never seen Ruby so down to earth like this. There were some things I needed to say, so I nodded. In the car, Ruby kept glancing at me, smiling. "Focus on the road and keep your eyes straight." I reminded her. "Feels nice." Her smile widened. "What feels nice?" "You sitting in my passenger seat feels nice." She reminisced. "When I first got the car, I was excited, looking around while driving. You were the one who reminded me to keep my eyes on the road. Back then, I said you were my safety. I loved having you beside me and somehow forgot that." She confessed, "It's me getting too comfortable. Someone easily complacent like me could use some tough lessons." After thinking for a moment, I said, "You're almost unrecognizable now. In my eyes, you were always shining. You were the top student from your county, always first in our college program, semester after semester winning scholarships. You were the student body president, and you seemed to glow when you spoke on stage. I haven't mentioned this before, but my admiration for you is what made me like you." Ruby was overjoyed as she turned to me, eyes sparkling. Then the sparkle dimmed, because I continued, But now you're not yourself anymore. Your pride, confidence, and spirit are all gone. Changing yourself and losing who you are for someone else, that's what I used to do. I don't want you to become like that. Ruby, never lose yourself in love. Love yourself first so you can love someone else. I did it and you can too. The silence stretched for the rest of the ride. Back home, through the elevator to the door. Suddenly, Ruby spoke. Thank you. I understand where I went wrong. Don't worry. I'll work hard to improve myself and get better. But I won't give up on you because your kindness makes it hard to let go. Ruby and I went back to barely seeing each other every day. She only sent me one message, telling me she completed a big project and got promoted with a raise. You see, Brian, I haven't lost myself, and I'm becoming better too. I didn't reply to her. The National Day holiday was coming up, and I made plans with my buddies to travel to Bali. 2 days before the break, I got a call from Ruby. I booked a flight to Bali. Didn't you always want to go there? No, I'm gonna Hainan with friends. I rejected her outright. But this is a rare opportunity. I managed to get the tickets with difficulty. Who knows when there'll be another chance? I've already been there. What? When? Last Labor Day. There was a pause on the other end, and then silence. I knew she was reminded of what happened back then. Last Labor Day, Ruby and I had booked tickets in advance to go to Bali, a place I had been longing to visit. I had been looking forward to this trip for a long time. I was busy every day researching travel guides online and preparing all kinds of travel gear. But the night before we left, Ruby got a call from Evan. He sounded pitiful and said he had to have an appendectomy the next day and didn't have anyone to accompany him. Ruby agreed without hesitation. I was standing right next to her at the time. My shock was written all over my face. We're supposed to leave for our trip tomorrow. How can you go to the hospital with him? Ruby replied, annoyed. Evan's surgery is a big deal. How can he have no one with him? Brian, there will be more chances to go to Bali. Let's go next time. I cried, next time? Since graduation, you said you'd take me there when you had time. It's been 5 years now. What about your promise? Her patience seemed completely exhausted. She said impatiently, don't make trouble. Going out for fun versus a sick person. What do you think is more important? I shouted, but I'm your boyfriend. Who is he to you? Doesn't he have family? Friends? Why must he call someone else's girlfriend for company? I don't want to argue with you. I'm going to see Evan's condition now. The surgery is tomorrow, and he must be scared. She walked out the door without hesitation. So, after I left, you went to Bali alone? Ruby asked. Yeah, I traveled there for 3 days by myself. When I got back, you had just brought Evan home. I barely remember how sad I was or how I felt boarding the plane alone. But the beautiful scenery was healing. I had a great time those days. Visited the scenic spots I had been dreaming of. They didn't disappoint. I realized then that traveling alone could be nice too. Actually, on the way back, I was in a good mood the whole time. Until I opened the door to see Evan sitting in the living room. Ruby had brought her home to take care of her. Where have you been? You just came back now? She didn't feel anything was wrong with what she did, speaking in a displeased tone. That porridge you used to make me when I was sick? Can you make some for Evan? She just had surgery and needs something light. I said in disbelief. You brought her to live in our home? And want me to make porridge for her? Ruby, you've gone too far. She said impatiently. Evan is a patient. Why are you picking on a patient? What does her being a patient have to do with me? Who is she to me? Why should I take care of her? I said as I dragged my suitcase and turned to leave. At that point, Ruby's eyes were only on Evan, and she didn't notice the huge suitcase I was carrying. I ended up staying at my buddy's place. A few days later, when Evan recovered and moved out, Ruby came looking for me. I still loved her then. She gave a reason to come back. I just went along with it, didn't even need coaxing. From beginning to end, she never realized I had traveled abroad during those days. I never mentioned it either. I guess she just didn't care about me back then. I remember bringing back a few pretty wind chimes from Bali. They're hanging on the bedroom window frame with an English logo on them. They would have been easy to notice with just one look. But she never paid any attention. Every time I think about the past 2 years, I wish I could slap myself. Ruby chuckled bitterly. I treated you so poorly. I was a jerk. What should I do? I feel increasingly like I don't deserve your forgiveness. Her voice was full of bitterness. Hey, how about refunding the ticket? The world is so big. There's no need to revisit sites you've already seen. I had a great time with the guys in Y City. It seems like it's been a long time since I had such a carefree trip. No more restless moments. No more gloom. Just fully enjoying the local beauty. I documented the sights and stories I saw and shared them on my social media. Ruby liked almost every post immediately. That night, a few of us staying at the host family played games together. Losers had to put sticky notes on their noses. I was pretty unlucky, losing repeatedly all night. After losing another game, a pretty girl sitting across happily picked up the largest sticky note and came toward me. As she stuck it on my forehead, one of my buddies snapped a picture. He even sent me the photo. I thought it was funny, so I shared that and other game photos on social media. That night, I got a call from Ruby. She seemed to have had a few drinks, her speech slightly off. Brian, I told you, I'm willing to stay by your side. Even if I can't win you back, I won't regret the effort. I've imagined that one day you might fall in love again, walk into marriage with another woman. I thought I'd be gracious and smile while blessing you. But now I'm a bit scared. When that day comes, how am I supposed to cope? Before, I didn't like seeing you give a female colleague a ride. Now, seeing you play games with other girls, I'm drinking alone in frustration. I'm insanely jealous of the people around you, who get to see your genuine smiles. You're so remarkable, so attractive, now single again. For sure, quality men will pursue you. Can I stand by and just let that happen? In the end, she kept murmuring, I was wrong. Don't leave me. You're drunk. Go get some rest. I'm hanging up. The next day around noon, I'm out playing with my friends and planning to head back to the Airbnb for a nap. Right as we approach the entrance, I see Ruby standing there. She winks at me. Saw your social media post. Thought this place looked fun, so I grabbed a last-minute flight. Luckily, there's still a room available at your Airbnb, so I booked it. I stay silent and walk into the courtyard. She doesn't seem to notice my annoyance and keeps chattering. Since I came on a whim, I didn't plan anything. Mind if I tag along with you guys? You handle the sites and routes, and I'll cover all the costs. Fair enough? I roll my eyes. Not really. For the next couple of days, Ruby tags along wherever my friend and I go. Wherever we eat, she insists on paying. Whenever I linger a bit too long admiring something fun, she buys it. Even my friend said, she actually seems sincere. Maybe give her another chance? I shook my head. That day we were wandering down a quaint street, my friend and I engrossed in a beautiful embroidered belt. Suddenly, chaos erupted farther down, with shouting and screams. Before we could react, a crazed horse was speeding our way. The horse, seemingly spooked, was running wildly with no sense of direction. As it charged closer, I was ready to dash into a nearby store. Just then, Ruby shouted, "Look out!" She lunged and pushed both my friend and me into the store, while she hit the ground, not quite managing to get up in time. The horse barreled past her, fortunately not tramping on her, but its hoof did catch her knee. After the chaos subsides, the entire street is left in disarray with people looking shocked and confused. Ruby lay motionless. I rush over to help her up. "Are you okay?" She shook her head. "My knee kind of hurts." I glanced down. It was a mess of red. Hospital time. My friend and I carefully helped Ruby to a taxi. At the hospital, the doctor mentioned a minor fracture. Not too serious, but it'll need time to heal. After dealing with everything, we headed back. Ruby, now injured, got her company to grant her remote working. Since it was due to her saving me, I couldn't just leave her to fend for herself. I decided to help out by ordering her meals during the day, planning to cook dinner for her when I got home each evening. Yet, every night when I arrived at her place, dinner was already prepared. I'd watch her hobble around, feeling a bit helpless. "Aren't you hurting? We agreed you'd let me handle dinner after work." "No worries," she'd smile. "You work all day and making dinner too? That's tiring." Plus, I can manage just fine with crutches. After dinner, despite her protests, I do the dishes. As I was about to leave, I noticed her trying to get up to see me out. Don't bother, just sit and rest. Right as I reached the door, she called out, "Wait a sec, I've got something for you." "Don't get up, what is it?" "I'll grab it." I stopped her from standing. In the fridge, I made a mango mousse. First time trying that recipe today. I haven't tasted it, so no idea if it's any good. My hand paused opening the fridge. I took out the petite mango mousse, left her place, and closed the door behind me. Back home, I placed that small dessert on my coffee table, studying it. The amber mousse with cream was well-formed and quite tempting. Ruby had claimed it was her first attempt. Her skillful execution was surprising. It's strange what habits can stick or be forgotten. I hadn't eaten a mango in ages, even though it was once my favorite fruit. After moving in with Ruby post-graduation, I discovered her mango allergy. I loved mangoes, especially mango mousse. Growing up, whenever I aced an exam, my mom would reward me with one. Mango mousse was my sentimental standout dessert. But Ruby couldn't stand it around the house. We butted heads about it frequently. "You're allergic to consuming mangoes? Not touching or smelling them. So why can't I enjoy them at home?" I'd fume. She'd defend, "Because I'm allergic. I've developed a disgust for them. Seeing one makes me queasy. Smelling one makes me retch." Post-arguments, I gave in. I didn't want trivial fights breaking our bond. The silent treatment sucked. Eventually, I settled for enjoying mangoes outside, leaving them out of my personal space, and over time, the craving dulled. It's been ages since mango mousse graced my palate. But Ruby remembered. She's definitely trying to make up for lost time, showing sincerity in every gesture. During that moment in Bali, her instinct was to protect me, facing danger, risking herself. To create something I loved, she touched the off-putting fruit she previously abhorred. Despite needing my help, she wouldn't let me bend over backward, limping along each evening to prep meals. Truth is, her intent to rekindle our relationship is obvious. But I'm hesitant. I've had enough. Though Ruby has changed, who knows what could happen? Could she maintain this forever? Is there no chance she'd lose interest again down the road? I can't bear to contemplate another bout of neglect and coldness. If I crumble again, could I rise once more? My tolerance for heartache seems limited, and could it withstand yet another blow? Finally got out of it, and I don't want to make the same mistake again. She shattered my fantasies about love, leaving me unable to muster the courage to try again. The thing is, I know very well that I don't love her now. I didn't eat that piece of strawberry mousse after all. Threw it in the trash. It's been so long since I've had something that's sweet. I can't handle it anymore. Just sniffing it made me turn away. That night, I called the landlord and told her I'd be moving out once my 3-month lease was up. I can't go on like this. I need to be more decisive and not give her any hope. I even thought about paying for a girlfriend so Ruby would give up on me. But the next day, it seemed like I didn't need to do anything. I saw Evan at the door across from mine, banging on it. Ruby was likely inside but didn't open up. When I appeared, Evan's gaze was like a dagger. "Oh, so that's why she moved. It was because of you. You guys aren't together anymore. So why are you still messing with her?" He shouted. "Why? Even though she likes me, why is she ignoring me? She blocked all my contacts and hangs up the minute she hears my voice. Everywhere I look, she's not there. I watch her company's entrance, but she never comes out. She must be avoiding me, sneaking in through the back. I wouldn't have known she moved here if I hadn't had someone watching Mike." Then he looked up, glaring at me. You must have seduced her. I advise you to back off. Ruby loves me. She can't stand you, man. Even when you had a fever, she couldn't care less about you, just wanted to watch a movie with me. Oh, I hope you both find happiness, I shrugged. Back inside, I could still hear Evan shouting. Ruby, open up. It's Evan. Don't ignore me. I'm begging you. The walls have poor soundproofing, and I could hear his knocking clearly from the living room. Evan was persistent, continuing until 11 p.m. After my shower, it got quiet. He might have left. Curious, I peeked through the peephole. What I saw startled me. Evan was lying passed out on the floor in front of Ruby's door. I was about to check on him when Ruby opened her door. She looked panicked seeing Evan there. She called 911, her voice trembling as she gave the address. After hanging up, she hurriedly dragged Evan inside. I didn't know if something actually happened to Evan, but I had no intention of calling Ruby about it. I waited in the living room, but even by 1 a.m., there was no sound outside. No ambulance sirens either. At night, there's no traffic. An ambulance should have been here by now. That means the call must have been canceled. Why would an ambulance get canceled? It must be because Evan woke up and was fine. From my past interactions with Evan, I could guess this was all a show, to make Ruby open the door and feel guilty and protective. Did Ruby see through it? Doesn't matter. If Ruby didn't realize Evan was faking it, she never saw through him all these years. She just lacks judgment. But considering she was a student council president back in college, it's unlikely. If she saw through others but couldn't see Evan's act, it's because emotions clouded her judgment. Or maybe she saw through him but panicked anyway. What if something had happened to him? She got scared. Even if she realized later it was an act, she didn't kick him out. She couldn't be heartless towards Evan. In any case, it was clear she hadn't fully gotten over Evan. She still had feelings for him. I analyzed it all calmly, with no emotion. Even if they ended up together, it has nothing to do with me. I'm just grateful I've been firm all along. Never soft-hearted towards Ruby, and never gave her a chance. Since then, Ruby hasn't reached out to me. I haven't seen her next door either. Maybe she moved out. Great, now I don't have to move. A month later, Ruby called me. Her voice was shaky with sobs. I shouldn't have let Evan in that night. He pretended to faint, then woke up as soon as he got inside. I tried to get him to leave, but he pleaded with me. He asked to stay one night, said he'd leave the city and never return. I believed him, but he had a plan. He slipped something in my drink. I can't recall what happened that night. Next morning, I woke up with him in bed. He cried and apologized, saying he couldn't leave me, so he did what he did. In that moment, I felt dead inside. I knew I had lost you forever. I kicked Evan out, moved away, and lost the right to face you. I was foolish to give him a chance. I'm not worthy of you anymore. Honestly, I said, it's better if we don't meet. Let's live our lives separately from now on. Brian, I'm marrying Evan, she suddenly revealed. Before I could process that, she continued, after that night, I hated myself and Evan. I didn't want anything to do with him anymore. But recently, I found out I'm pregnant. If I terminate, I won't ever be able to have kids. He said he'd take responsibility. I agreed. Now we're just two damaged people together. Better than hurting anyone else. I've hit rock bottom. It can't get any worse. She broke down in tears again. Goodbye, Brian. One day after work, I saw an envelope under my door. Must have slipped through the gap. Curious, I picked it up. Who still writes letters these days? Opening it, I recognized the handwriting. Brian, I'm leaving. Sorry, but I can't stay true to my promise anymore. I'm not meant to be by your side now. I've resigned and am going back home. This time, it's for real. We won't meet again. Wish you happiness, my dearest boy.